Stories are the most powerful thing on earth. They are literally life and death. Wars are waged based on the story of who is the hero and who is the villain. You are the result of a story your parents told each other, the one-night stand, the soulmate, and friends who became so much more. Life and death. So wouldn't you like to understand them better, these stories? How Story Works, an elegant guide to the craft of storytelling by Lani and Rich, demystifies stories and helps you understand why you love what you love, why you hate what you hate, and why prologues are almost always a bad idea. How Story Works by Lani and Rich. Available on Amazon in ebook, audiobook, and paperback form. Get your copy today.
Welcome to Still Pretty, a Buffy the Vampire Slayer podcast from Chipperish Media. I'm film scholar jonesing for a little brainless fun, Noelle LaCroix.
And I'm story expert and pissed off middle-aged mom who's just had schnapps, Lani and Rich. And we're here today to talk about Dead Man's Party, the second episode of season 3.
I would argue that you have at least 5 more years before you're middle-aged, but get down with your bad self. Dead Man's Party aired on October 6th, 1998, and was written by my friend and yours, Marty Noxon, and directed by James Whitmore Jr.
Yes, Marty Noxon is a genius, and we love her. All right, everybody, the reason why we love Marty Noxon so much is not just because of what she's written, but what she will write in the future of Buffy, and we have seen it all, and we're going to talk about it all. So if you have not seen all of Buffy, what you need to do is get your DVDs, have yourself a lost weekend, binge your way right through it, and then come back and listen to All Is Still Pretty, because it is the full context of all of Buffy. All right, didn't anyone ever warn you about playing with pointy sticks? It's all fun and games until somebody loses an eye. Let's go on patrol. In Dead Man's Party, we get Season 3 Buffy hair. Also, Buffy has an awkward conversation with Joyce as Joyce hangs a Nigerian death mask she stole from the gallery on her wall. Buffy then wanders around town at night looking for her friends and finds them in a dark alley patrolling. A vampire attacks, Buffy slays, they have an awkward reunion, and then they go to see Giles.
What if he's mad?
Mad? Just because you ran away and abandoned your post and your friends and your mom and made him lay awake every night and warn about you? Maybe we should wait out here.
Things are not all tea and crumpets, though. Joyce tries to get Buffy back into school, but Snyder gets positively tingly at the idea of keeping her out. Then Willow stands Buffy up for their coffee date, and Buffy returns home to find Joyce's weird friend Pat coming out of the house.
I sort of took it upon myself to look after her while you were, off and away or what have you. And, well, between your situation and reading Deep End of the Ocean, she was just a wreck, you can imagine.
Sure, Pat. Book club. Buffy goes inside and Joyce suggests having a welcome back dinner with Mr. Giles and Buffy's friends. She sends Buffy down to the basement to fetch the company plates, and Buffy finds a seriously dead cat, which they then bury in the backyard. That night, as they sleep, the Nigerian death mask's eyes glow, and the cat comes back to, kind of life. The next day, while Joyce is trying to figure out Buffy's school situation, she opens the door to take out the garbage, and the dead cat rushes through the door. They, of course, call in Giles.
Welcome to the Hellmouth Petting Zoo.
At the library, the Scoobies decide to upgrade Joyce's quiet dinner from a gathering to a hootenanny, including a band and lots of kids, without consulting Joyce, so I'm sure that'll be fine. Pat shows up with empanadas, and the band sets up, making it too loud for Buffy to talk with her friends. And everything is both noisy and awkward, a combination which always ends well. When Buffy goes to the kitchen to get a little quiet, she overhears Pat kicking the conflict vending machine until Joyce spits out this little gem.
Having Buffy home, I thought it was going to make it all better, but in some ways, it's almost worse.
Buffy goes upstairs to pack her stuff and leave, and the Nigerian death mask glows, and dead people all over town rise and become zombies, all shambling toward the death mask, which is calling them back to presumably take it off the wall of the woman that stole it from the gallery that bought it from the people that stole it from Nigeria. It's like the house that Jack built of cultural appropriation, but we're not going to talk about that because Giles figures everything out and rushes off to Buffy's house to deal with it.
Do you like my mask? Is Isn't it pretty? It raises the dead. Americans.
Sorry, Giles. Americans are awful, but you as a Brit do not get to play the colonizing art thief card. While Giles is attacked by zombies, Willow sees Buffy packing and gets upset that Buffy's running off again. Joyce steps in and confronts Buffy about it, chasing her downstairs into the middle of the party, and this, of course, is the moment the band takes a break so everyone can hear.
You know what? I don't care. I don't care what your friends think of me, or you for that matter, because you put me through the ringer, Buffy. I mean it. And I've had schnapps.
As everyone attacks Buffy, more zombies rise and attack the house, killing some nameless extras and also Pat, who becomes a zombie herself. The mask's eyes glow and Pat's eyes open. As things quiet down downstairs, Cordelia and Oz come out of the closet where they were hiding with ski poles for weapons, with which Cordelia almost spears Giles.
Cordelia's beats me.
How do we know it's really you and not Zombie Giles?
Cordelia, do stop being tiresome.
That's him.
Giles does some brilliant expositional dialogue, and we learn that if one of the zombies puts on the mask, they become the demon, and that's really bad. Upstairs, Pat puts on the mask and becomes the demon, and she and Buffy fight, crashing through Joyce's bedroom window to the backyard. Buffy puts the shovel through the demon's eyes, and the zombies disappear. In a rush of adrenaline, everything is fine. Everyone hugs and all is well. The next day at school, Giles visits Snyder. Oh, sorry, no. I mean, Ripper visits Snyder.
And Buffy will be allowed back in.
Sorry. I'm not convinced.
Would you like me to convince you?
Hell yeah, baby. Like one of my favorite things.
So good. So good.
So good. All right. So Noelle LaCroix, here we are, Dead Man's Party, moving into season 3. What'd you think?
I really like this episode.
Oh,
I'm
good.
discovering that I really like Monsters of the Week. Monsters of the Week.
Monsters of the Week, like cul-de-sac.
Yes.
Attorneys General. Yeah, there we go.
Mothers-in-law. Exactly. No, I really enjoyed this episode. This is another one of those episodes that I don't think I ever revisited, so I didn't have a great memory of it going in to watch it this time. But damn, there's some really good stuff in here, and it gets me in the feels in a way that Becoming parts 1 and 2 didn't.
Wow.
Yeah, but I know we'll get there. So what do you think of Dead Man's Party?
Dead Man's Party is one of those, and again, like I think that I don't particularly care for the Monsters of the Week episodes. I remember the monster, and then I think, I always remember that I love the line from Giles, "Bloody Americans" or whatever. Do you like my mask?
Do you like my mask?
It raises the dead.
So funny.
I love that from Giles. It's one of my favorite moments in all of Buffy. And so I always remember that. But aside from that, like, I just remember the zombies. Like, I always remember the monster, but I don't really remember all the other stuff that happens in it. So I do like this episode. I have some problems with the way Buffy is treated in this episode and the way that everything is Buffy's fault. I mean, of course, they don't know most of what happened because she doesn't tell them. And so that kind of is on Buffy. But it's just like, I always get so frustrated with the way that everybody yells at Buffy. Everybody attacks Buffy. Even without knowing that Angel got his soul back at that last moment, she still had to kill him. I mean, which is still hard because she loved that part of him. So whether he came back or not, which makes it worse that he did, but knowing that she had to kill him and that her mother said, "Don't come back," and she got kicked out of school, like all of these things contribute to Buffy taking off. And I feel like everybody's a little hard on Buffy. I mean, how did you respond to that?
I have a lot of feelings about that scene because everyone is really hard on Buffy. Everyone really does gang up on Buffy in that moment. And everyone has a really legit argument, like from their own perspective. Willow starts this in the scene before where she's talking to Buffy. Buffy, she finds Buffy in her room and confronts her about leaving again. And Buffy says something to the effect of like, "Oh, I know this was really hard for you having me gone." And Willow's like, "No, like not just that, but I have, my life experiences that I'm dealing with."
Yeah.
And my best friend wasn't here for that. So it's like, it's hard because in that scene in the living room, I want to be like, it's not about you, but it kind of is about everyone. Yeah. So like everyone has a really good point. And
except
I feel like
Joyce.
Oh my God, Joyce.
Joyce pisses me off.
We'll get to Joyce.
We'll get to Joyce.
But it's really hard because I really, really hate seeing everyone, come for Buffy. Mm-hmm. But I have a lot of empathy for how it feels to just be left and like, yes. Oh, I guess we're not friends anymore because you didn't contact us. Mm-hmm. Like Buffy says, I thought about calling every day, and Willow says, but you didn't.
Yeah.
So, it's not really the thought that counts, on the other, like Buffy's having this huge emotional experience, but so is everyone else. Not just because she disappeared, but also just in their own lives. Like their lives go on. So for Buffy to come back and be like, well, I'm back, and not address everything that's gone on with everyone else while she was away.
Yeah.
It's super complex. And it just like, it gets me in all of the feelings because yeah, like everyone is entitled to their own feelings and their own experience, but yeesh, like I want to be like, now is not the time, guys. Like now is not the time.
Well, and the thing is like Buffy leaving and not telling anybody, that's a problem. Joyce told her to leave. Joyce blaming Giles and then Joyce getting mad at Buffy when Buffy did what she told her to do. That I have absolutely no patience for. Willow, I see her point. I'm with her on it, and I see why she's hurt and why it's hard for her to talk to Buffy. I think that Buffy not telling everybody everything that happened, I think is a problem. Honestly, the person I feel the worst for is Giles, because Giles not only had that, like pseudo parental relationship with Buffy, cares about her very, very deeply, and obviously would be worried, but he also has the responsibility of the Slayer and of the Hellmouth and of all of that stuff. So she's not just his daughter in that kind of, parental sense, but she's his coworker. Mm-hmm. She leaves him, with these kids, and these kids are out there, trying to slay and doing all that, which is awesome, helping Giles out, and they're all working together. And Giles is the one that I honestly feel the worst for. And he is the one who just says, welcome home, who is kind and happy for her to be back. I absolutely love everything about Giles, and I think the worst for Giles, who is the one who displays the most love and acceptance, in her return. And I don't know, but the Joyce stuff bugs me. We'll get to that when we get to it, but it just kind of pissed me off. And then Cordy saying that Angel going bad was Buffy's fault when she's doing her little riff.
Oh God.
No, it's not Buffy's fault.
Cordy,
and that
get out
makes
of my
me
shoes.
insane. Cordy, I know, Cordy, get out of my shoes.
Get out of my shoes.
Cordy, who usually is the one who sees what everybody else doesn't see, in that case is simply like the conflict vending machine. We're just kicking that conflict vending machine and trying to get, I worked with a guy once many, many years ago who came in to work with this, with like this cast on his leg. His leg was broken like all the way up to the thigh. It was this whole thing. And we're all like, what the hell happened to Manny? And come to discover I swear to God, his Three Musketeers did not come out of the vending machine. And he had a fight with the vending machine and lost. Like that's what broke his damn leg. And so every time we have this conflict vending machine where somebody says something that you don't really think that they would actually believe or think, just because we want to ramp up that conflict, I always think of that guy wandering around on his crutches because he can't. Yeah.
And for a Three Musketeers, it's not worth it.
Yeah, and that's a shitty candy bar too. I mean, for a Snickers, I'd be like, all right. I get it. But a Three Musketeers, no, that's not all right.
Oh my God. Oh my God. So you mentioned Giles, and Giles being kind of the only one who handles things well.
Yeah.
Giles,
Who has a more legit reason, like probably has the most legit reason to be truly upset, and yet, and also the one who was traveling all over the place looking for her when Joyce was just sitting there blaming Giles. Like, yeah.
Yeah, it's not, I don't know. It's not good. Giles here, though, in full on like Scooby Dad mode.
Oh, yeah.
Is so wonderful. Starting with shutting Xander down when Xander's Xander's trying to like guard against all the vulnerability of this situation, by making a joke about Giles, becoming a looker or a seer. And Giles just says, "Thank you, Xander." Like in this fantastic, like, that is enough.
That's enough. Exactly.
Total, like composure. And then, oh my God, when the tea kettle whistles and he goes to the kitchen.
Oh my God, that moment kills me every time, because as a parent, like there are these moments where you're doing something else, right? And you just listen to your kids in the other room. And for me with my daughters, it was always, they delight each other in ways that is just adorable. And so I'd be like doing the dishes or whatever, and I would hear them laughing and giggling and just hooting with enjoyment of each other. And it would always like just fill my heart and my soul whenever that moment happened, because they didn't know I was listening. I was out of the room and, out of sight, out of mind with parents,
Yeah.
And it's always so wonderful and so genuine. And so I so connected with that moment with Giles, but also like for Giles, like that amount of emotional expression is huge. That's like everybody else is falling down on the floor weeping, and his welcome home, Buffy.
Oh my God.
That little smile and that welcome home and all of that is like, for everybody else, that's like the crying and throwing yourself into their arms. And I'm so glad you're back. Like all this, but he has this just reserved emotional space that is extremely genuine and extremely expressive, and yet so low key, and I love that with him. It kills me every single time.
And I love that the audience gets to go with him to the kitchen and watch him pull himself together and just reckon with he clearly in that moment is going through the whole emotional process that we see Joyce very loudly go through later.
Right.
But it's this lovely, quiet, private moment. The kids are all talking in the other room. And he's just like, he just takes this moment to sort of gather himself. And it is so moving and so gut-wrenching because he's not going to show them his emotional part of this. And that's something that I struggle with as a parent is you want your children to know that, you're human and you have feelings and you deal with them. But sometimes, in fact, oftentimes it's not about you with them. Like it is not their job to help you with your feelings. It's your job to care for them and protect them and help them navigate their own emotional space. So if you need to, you also need to parent yourself. And we see Giles doing that. And I think that's something that in this episode, at least Giles gets right. And Joyce, not so much. Joyce really wants Buffy to do that work for her. And it's icky. But I'm before we get to Joyce, I just need, because we're talking about Giles, this everything Giles in this episode is so delightful. So, him gathering himself in the kitchen just, gets me in all of the places. It's so moving and so beautiful. And then he serves tea and cookies to everyone. And they have this, beautiful moment of communion, the communion of tea and cookies. And it's just the best. It's just the best. And then Giles is advocating for Buffy. Maybe she doesn't want to tell us about everything that happened to her over the last 3 months.
Give her a little time. Give her a little space.
Yeah. I do love Xander trying, though. Did you go to Belgium? why would I go to Belgium? Like,
why not?
Trying.
Yeah, I know. I love that.
He's trying, and it's kind
very
of sweet.
It is.
But, oh man. And then Giles's look of sort of approval at the idea of Joyce making an appointment with Snyder to get Buffy back into school.
Yes.
It feels to me like a Giles thinking, okay, like she does have this parent on her side kind of relief moment for him. But then, of course.
But he'll step in.
Yeah. Yeah. But then, of course, when Snyder is just the absolute worst, because we're going to dial up the ickiness on Snyder.
We are.
Season.
We're dialing to 11 with gross Snyder. And I'm here for it.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I love how awful he is. Armin Shimmerman, I think, does such a fantastic job in that role. He's so slimy. And he's very there is like a lizard reptile sort of feel to him, which I think is really fun considering where we end up at the end of the season, where he gets, of course, eaten by the mayor giant snake. Which is always a bad idea.
Yeah.
The evil overlord Liz says, don't turn into a giant snake. It never ends well. And so it's really fun kind of seeing Snyder go into that completely slimy space. And then, of course, when Giles knocks, would you like me to convince you?
Yeah.
At the end. I love that.
I mean, I love Dad Giles
I
just
know.
so much, but bad Giles? Giles hot wiring his own car?
I know.
And then saying, like, riding a bloody bicycle as he's being attacked by zombies is so great.
Oh, I love when Ripper comes out to play.
It's so
That's like my
great.
favorite thing. Giles' misspent youth is one of my favorite parts of his character.
And that grin when he pushes Snyder up against the filing cabinet, like, oh, please make me convince you.
Please let me.
Please,
yes. Please give me the opportunity to do what I'd like to do here.
Exactly.
No, it is so nice. I love him taking that role. I love him enjoying, slamming Snyder up against the cabinets. It's all good. It's all really, really good.
It really is. It really is.
Good. And something else that's good and just fun in so many ways is Pat. Pat from quote unquote book club.
Yeah, sure. A likely story, Pat.
Yes,
whatever.
Exactly. I mean, there's clearly, like a sexual vibe going on between Joyce and Pat. I mean, I know this is something that over on Buffering the Vampire Slayer they picked up really hard, right in the beginning. But I think that it's in the text there. I think that we have some of that there that looks like, Pat was comforting Joyce in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and even if nothing happened between them, Pat has a big old crush on Joyce. Like that.
Oh, sure.
That part feels very textual to me.
Yes.
The way that she is just so, like, overly sweet to both Buffy and to Joyce. I mean, but really, let's face it, Pat is here, she's queer, and she's brought empanadas. Like, she is ready to process the house down.
Yes.
I mean, in full on, like, late 90s lesbian mode. And she is, and all of those meaningful looks that she shoots Joyce over some schnapps. I mean, it's pretty textual as far as I'm concerned.
I say great. I say go for it.
Yeah.
Like, you know what? I'm all for it. I'm mad at Joyce for a million different things, but not for getting her groove on wherever her groove may be. I mean, if Pat's your style, then go for it, man.
But unfortunately, we go the way of Igon, the demon Igon in the body of Jenny Calendar, where we've got this masculine demon. I mean, Giles uses male pronouns to refer to the demon Mobani.
Yeah.
And once again, we have this deep voice coming out of this very feminine presenting body. And that is part of where we get our creep factor. It's not, I don't know. There is always something that rubs me the wrong way about that. Just the casual transphobia of it, the ease with which we'll just, throw this kind of queer vibe onto something and then make it evil, or the other way around, that we will say that something is evil and then make it queer.
Right.
Down to like the simple bit of blocking that has, demon possessed Pat throwing Joyce down on the bed. It's to get her out of the way, but it's still like, it's one of those things where it's like, really, guys, like it's there and it's, I don't know. I don't love it. I don't love it. And I think it's unfortunate. I mean, Pat is icky in the sense that like she's way, way involved with Joyce's
She's inserting
life.
herself into this space. Yeah.
And she has a level of familiarity with Buffy, like right out of the gate, that does not feel good. It feels very performative, as in, I know what your absence did to your mother, and let me tell you, young lady. It's this very, like, I don't know. It's the, I have information about your life and I'm going to lord it over you, but in this really sweet way.
Yeah, it's not a million miles away from Ted. Like, man or woman, Joyce's taste.
Oh, Joyce.
It's not great.
Joyce. Yeah.
It's not great.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand, like, she, any port in a storm, like, she was having a really hard time. She needed a little comfort, and Pat was there with the schnapps. Like, I get it, And, and I realized that, me being in Glass House is about taste and romantic partners is probably not great. But I mean, like, it's not great. And the way that Pat really inserted herself into that space, the way that she laid that whole guilt trip on Buffy, well, you can understand. Yeah. It was just, so hard on her. Like, none of that is any of Pat's business. I don't care how many empanadas she brings over.
Well,
like,
and I talked about this a little bit already, but it's not really Buffy's business either, at least not at this point. The effect, the emotional fallout from her actions, I mean, it's her responsibility, but because she's not, I mean, she didn't wake up in the morning and decide to torture her mother.
Also, Joyce threw her out. Are we not forgetting Joyce told her 17-year-old daughter not to come back?
Don't even think about coming back. Yeah.
No, and I'm sorry, but like, that is on Joyce.
Totally.
I mean, the fact that Buffy left is not really on Buffy. Joyce told her to leave, and nobody is holding Joyce accountable for that, least of all Joyce. When Buffy throws that at her later, in the big argument, she's like, well, I'm sorry, I'm not perfect. Well, neither is Buffy either. You're not cutting her any slack for that. I mean, you have no idea what Buffy's been through. And it's one thing to like say it, not mean it, have your kid take it seriously and be like, oh my God, wow, did I fuck that up? Right? Had Joyce taken even the slightest bit of responsibility for having said that to her daughter, then I think I would be feeling a lot more, a lot softer toward Joyce at this point. But I'm just not, I mean, I was mad at Joyce in Becoming. I remain mad at her now. She's not taking any responsibility for anything. She does this whole thing. Well, I guess I just got used to all the quiet when you were gone with this passive aggressive guilt trip, with Buffy. And that she's not taking any responsibility for any of it makes me insane, and nobody's holding her accountable. And she blames Giles, like all of it. I'm not here for Joyce at this point.
I was really hard on Joyce in Becoming for kicking Buffy out, and I still stand by that. But I think we get maybe just a little bit of better from Joyce here. Not a lot, not a lot better, but definitely more nuanced. Buffy does ask Joyce to take in a lot all at once. And I think that acknowledging that is good and fair. And Joyce does talk about that. And I think I want to say that Dead Man's Party does a better job than Becoming at showing all of the varying and sort of conflicting and conflicted feelings that are going on here. Joyce trying to be supportive and saying, why don't we tell, can't we tell Principal Snyder? Can't we tell somebody, that you're a superhero? And then she says, is that the right term? It's not offensive, is it? I mean, Joyce is, she's really trying to wrap her head around this whole thing that is like complete news to her. And I've criticized the clunkiness of the coming out allegory.
Yeah.
And, but I think here it's pretty good. We do get a sense that Joyce has had to attempt to integrate not just this new knowledge about who her child is, but also this new vocabulary. And there's this whole new world and reality that she did not know about. So we get a little bit of it. I mean, Joyce is trying. It's a lot to take in all at once. But she told Buffy not to come back and then is hurt, and then is hurt when Buffy leaves, but blames that on Buffy. That like, well, what, was I not supposed to take you seriously, Mom, when you said, don't come back?
As a parent, when you say something to your kids, I mean, the default is listen to me and take me seriously.
Yes.
And then when you say, and the thing is, as a parent, like, you have a lot of power over your children. You have the power to kick them out of your house. Like, their entire life is dependent on you. So if you tell your kid not to come back, you'd better mean it.
Yeah.
That's not the kind of thing that you throw out there lightly. And so, I mean, I get Joyce saying that in the moment, right? I get Joyce having these conflicted feelings. I get Joyce being in a bad place. Where I have the real problem, and I think the Dead Man's Party absolutely does do a much, much better job of handling all of that. And I like that she's trying to figure out the right terms and trying to figure out a way to understand this and to process it. Like, all of that, I have sympathy for Joyce. Where I don't have sympathy is where she takes absolutely no responsibility for what happened, where she blames it on Giles in Anne last week's episode, and then comes in and starts yelling at Buffy about all of this stuff.
Yeah. It's like,
well, I'm not perfect. Yeah. Which is fine because she's not perfect and she didn't handle it well, and acknowledging that she didn't handle it well is fine. But putting all of that blame on Buffy and taking almost no responsibility aside from this very sarcastic, very passive aggressive, oh, well, I'm sorry, excuse me for not being like, perfect mom. No, you have to take responsibility for the fact that you told your daughter not to come home. That needs to be part of what Joyce wrestles with. She needs to reckon with that, and she does not. And so because of that, everything else she does, I give her very little credit for, because that's the first thing. That's the number one thing. I know I told you not to come back, and I'm so sorry, and I didn't mean it. That's what I need from her. I need her to say, I said this terrible thing and you left because I said this terrible thing. And I don't even know, where your daughter's been for 3 months, what she might have experienced out there on her own, unprotected, unsafe, like the things that might have happened to her. That would be like the first thing on my mind as a mother, and Buffy not talking and not sharing, that is on Buffy, especially when it comes to Willow. Like, I have a lot more sympathy for Willow in this. But overall, like, Joyce, she's not taking responsibility for her part in it. Buffy left because she told her to.
Yeah.
And so she has apologies to give, not just to Buffy, but to Giles, to Willow, to Xander, who also don't know that happened. Like, Giles and Willow and Xander, they don't know that Buffy or that Joyce said, don't come back.
Yeah.
Like, as soon as they find that out, I would think that would reframe a lot of this anger that they have toward Buffy. And it doesn't. We just gloss over it and it's all Buffy's fault.
Yeah. Yeah.
And meanwhile, Joyce is also like stealing art from the art gallery.
Yeah.
The art gallery got this thing, and I thought I'd just
it up in
nail it to the wall in my bedroom. Right.
What?
Like, that doesn't seem right, And I mean, now we here at Chipperish Media understand that in this day and age, sometimes you have to steal things from the office in order to make ends meet, be it paper clips or a Nigerian death mask. We're not judging. Okay, well, we're judging the death mask a little, but the bottom line is the last thing you need is for us to be shilling mattresses and watches and razors and meal services, which is why we here at Chipperish Media are ad-free. But the only way to remain ad-free is through the support of our patrons. For as little as $3 a month, which is basically 1 cup of coffee, or, one knockoff Nigerian death mask, you can make all Chipperish Media podcasts free for everyone else who doesn't have the extra money to throw around. And you get access to the Discord chat with all the other patrons and exclusive Chipperish content like 2-host minimum, where the Chipperish hosts mix and match to engage with the movies and books you want to hear us talk about. Go to patreon.com/Chipperish to find out how you can save the day, keep Chipperish Media content free for everyone, and also ad-free, and keep us in the business of making the podcasts that you love. All right. So let's talk a little bit about Willow. We've mentioned a little bit like how much we can sympathize with Willow.
I love. Oh,
things I love.
Willow. So we all know at this point in the run of Still Pretty that when Willow cries, Noelle wants to cry.
Right.
But this is the episode that got me.
I know.
Becoming Part 2 does not hit me in the waterworks feels. Here,
oh God, it destroys me and always has.
All right. I just roll my eyes and go, oh, heterosexuals. But no. But everyone letting their feelings explode all over each other totally gets me.
Yeah.
And Willow hits the hardest. I mean, Willow confronting Buffy in her room about leaving again, also known as giving up, which, wow, that is harsh, but also feels very real. Everything that Willow says feels it comes across as very genuine, and it's so painful. And I mentioned this a little bit earlier. Buffy acknowledges that Buffy's actions were hurtful to Willow. And Willow says, I don't just mean that. I mean my life. Right. It's not just about you and me. It's about everything around us and everything that I'm going through. And I love that she says, I'm dating. And I think it's the first time she's said that phrase, and you see it sort of hit her, and then she repeats it and she says, I'm having serious dating. It's like the weight of it finally occurs to her because she said it out loud to Buffy and everything that means. And it guts me. And Buffy, rightfully says, well, you wouldn't, I didn't talk to you because you wouldn't understand. And Willow, in one of the wisest Willow moments we get, says, maybe I don't need to understand. Maybe I just need you to talk to me. And oh God, Willow.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing, is that we look at it as, the Slayer's gone. Like, what are we going to do without the Slayer? And that's what Buffy is seeing at her value as being, right?
Yeah.
But I think the reason why this moment always gets me in this episode, and I absolutely love it, and I cry every time. And I think part of that is because Buffy is seeing her absence as the Slayer, that responsibility, and she's not seeing that Willow lost her best friend, and that is a huge loss to grieve. And this is grief, it is real grief. She didn't know that Buffy was ever going to come back. She didn't know she was ever going to see her best friend again. And so when we bring it, all of a sudden we swap focus, we rack focus from the Slayer and all this big responsibility to my best friend was gone and I needed her. And that grief and dealing with that has been really hard. And Buffy's not talking. Buffy is just completely shut down. And I mean, Giles makes a good point earlier where he's like, well, let's give her a little time,
right?
But Willow is like, look, I lost my best friend. I need my best friend, and I didn't have her. And that was really hard for me. It wasn't about taking over the Slayer duties or the Slayer being gone. It was about Buffy being gone. And that being a moment for Buffy, too, to realize that her value is on a lot of different levels. It's not just as her responsibility as the Slayer, which takes over so much of her consciousness most of the time, and understandably so. She's this very young girl with this huge responsibility. I mean, the weight of the world on her all the time, to forget that she is not just the Slayer, but also a best friend, a daughter, not just to Joyce, but to Giles,
Yeah.
and all of those things put together. I mean, that put it into a different context, a much more personal and meaningful context. And I really love that. And at the end, though, the way that they resolve it by trading these insults with each other is so sweet. I love that ending.
I love that so much.
Mm-hmm.
I love that so much. Yeah, Willow, I mean, Willow just is so delightful and trying so hard. And her my sweetheart is in the band face continues to be fantastic. The way she watches Oz play at the party is it just lights up my heart. I love it so much. I mean, of course, we all know that I am here for all things Oz. I love Oz, and we get some great Oz.
He's the best.
I mean, we get some really good Oz. I love Oz loving the undead cat. Like,
I know.
He's like, it's interesting.
Yeah.
I like it. Like, he just, I'm like,
he's so chill about everything. Nobody is ever more zen than Oz.
Yeah.
He can, like, whatever comes out, like when he becomes a werewolf, he's just like, yeah, okay, so
I'm a werewolf.
I guess that's what's happening now. Like,
do we ever see? Now I don't remember. Do we ever see Oz get really ruffled by anything?
I think toward season 4, when he cheats on Willow and there's all that stuff, we see him, and when he comes back, right, we see him actually be have this emotional thing going on but he's also still so subdued about it, and most of it is conveyed through Seth Green's performance, but yeah, he gets ruffled sometimes, but not often. And it's amazing how much he can hold on to his zen through everything. And he's always so cool. I love his whole gathering shindig hootenanny thing. Like, that's one of my favorite.
And that is probably one of the most enduring.
Just a little bit of nanny.
Yeah. One of the most enduring quotes from the series as a whole.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Hootenanny.
Absolutely.
A lot of hoot.
Yeah.
Just a little bit of nanny.
A little bit of nanny.
What? I also enjoy
really
the fact that that a gathering is Brie. Like, he's got, I'm like, okay, cool. Like, there's a cheese.
Mellow song styling.
Yes. Right. Mellow song. Less mellow song styling. Yeah.
Right.
Oz has clearly, maybe he's so zen because he's thought everything through so clearly. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
Everything is, he defined his terms. Everything is, everything is very clear to us. But like,
he does.
Even at the end, when Giles sends him out to tell Buffy to, go for the eyes, he gets blasted with whatever, old-fashioned
whatever the
flash
weird
bulb that is.
I guess.
The demon does. Who knows? Whatever. We needed something, okay? We needed the demon to do something. It's fine.
Right.
And, the demon dissolves or disappears, and he just goes, never mind. Like, never mind. It's fine. Just,
you just watch. No, you got it.
Yeah. Just watch this thing disintegrate, and it's fine.
Yeah.
I love it.
I have no idea where he gets his like zen from, but I want it. I want that kind of zen in my life. Just like nothing rattles him.
Yeah.
And it's so great. Like, no matter what happens, he's like, all right, this is what it is. He's very good at accepting whatever the reality is. It's like, okay, I'm a werewolf. Fine. Okay, did everyone see that guy turn to dust?
Right.
Okay, vampires are a thing?
Mm-hmm.
No, I get it. Explains a lot. Like, his whole thing, he's so cool about everything. And it's one of my favorite things about Oz. He is like the kind of like the ideal representation of not just masculinity, which I think he has a lot of that, but just humanity. Like, we all spend so much time in our lives, like, especially now, we're all stressed out, we're all freaked out, we're all worried about everything. Everything has to be perfect all the time. And just like to pull in a little of that Oz, style of Zen, like that Oz branding, right? I mean, I want to live my life as Oz. That's like my absolute, I don't make resolutions, but 2019, I want to be Oz. So, I just want to pull in that Oz energy.
So 3 days out of the month, you're going to be a complete monster, is what you're saying.
Yes. No, I would like that too. I would like those 3 days. And then I would like to forgive myself for those 3 days and let it go.
License
and just be like, how it is.
things.
How it is. Lock me up in a library 3 nights a week. Hell yes.
I will. Oh, man. Okay. I'll get right on that. We'll make you a library cage. We'll find you a cute British librarian with a bad boy past.
No, definitely find me a British librarian with a bad boy past. I don't know what it is. Like, cause I've never been like the bad boy kind of girl, but between Giles over here, you know, Giles when Ripper comes out and Dark Wesley over on Still Dead, I gotta tell you, I am loving it. There's something about the British bad boy, the dark British bad boy that just gets me where I live, man. I love it.
Oh man. I
So
love
one
what
more
you
thing.
love.
I know. One more thing I wanted to bring in was, of course, in the opening, we have Xander as bait, right? Where last week we had Xander who was saying we should use Cordelia as bait. I love the fact that Xander is the bait. I think that that's great. And I'm headcanoning that was Cordelia's idea.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So what's good for the goose, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes.
Also, we have our first sighting of the espresso pump, the coffee place where Buffy and Willow hang out now. And that's going to be like a bigger, presence in coming seasons, more necessarily than season 3. But this is our first sighting of it, which is pretty cool. And here's a question, though, that I have for you. I know we don't have research mode here the way that we do it over on Still Dead, because that's a Kelly Jones jam, and she's so good at that. But I did have a question, right?
Sure.
Okay. So purely from Buffy's experience, purely from Buffy's perspective, Angel's soul came back.
Yes.
She saw his soul return.
Yes.
At that moment, knowing that Willow was working on that and that was Willow's thing. So right now, she has to know, right, that Willow said, kick his ass, which is not true.
Yes.
Knowing that it wasn't true, she's got to know that it wasn't true. And knowing that Xander knew it wasn't true. How does that not come up for 5 more years? How do we not have this discussion where Buffy turns to Xander and says, what the fuck, Xander? How does that not...
Well... Yeah, and
she knows. She has to know. How does she think Angel's soul came back at the last minute?
And how does it not come up with Willow? Like, how do Willow and Buffy, now that they're friends again,
right?
How do
they not have that discussion?
Well, how do they not process this? Because of course, if Buffy opens up to Willow about what she was feeling and what she was going through and what she had to do in that moment, it's gonna come up that Angel got his soul back. Like you can't, there's not a way to tell that story and not say, and then, there was this flash in his eyes and he had no memory of what had happened. And
his soul was back and he was Angel and I killed him.
Like what?
Nobody knows that for 5 years. Willow doesn't ask about it. Willow just assumes that her spell fizzled, which of course, granted, she was new to it and she wasn't sure what happened and she didn't know. And I guess Willow presumes, since Buffy never said anything, that, because you would kind of think if Angel's soul came back, that'd come up in conversation eventually.
But don't the Scoobies mention that the orb, doesn't Cordelia say something about the orb glowing?
Yeah.
Like, maybe
because
at the end of Becoming Part 2, they're speculating about where Buffy is, and Willow says maybe the spell worked and she and Angel want to be alone together.
Right.
So,
yeah.
And Cordelia addresses, see, now I got to go back and watch it. I got to go back and watch it again, because it's like, how is it that they know that something happened, at least the group participating in casting the spell.
Yeah.
They know that something changed, and Willow, we see what it does to Willow. It changes her, and she talks a little bit at the end of Dead Man's Party about, contacting the spirit world, and it feels like being ripped apart inside, and how scary, all of that was. So, I don't know. I don't buy it. Like, I don't buy that it wouldn't come up between Buffy and Willow at some point in some way, whether they were talking about processing feelings about Angel, or losing someone you love, or just working magic and what it feels like to be that, to be working with that kind of power. I mean, I have so many follow-up questions.
And at the point later in this season when Angel comes back ensouled, from 100 years in a hell dimension, right? I think some questions would come up then, but it doesn't. And it's so bizarre to me that we don't get any resolution on that for 5 years. And then when we do, it's like a 3-second thing right before Buffy goes out to kill Anya and Selfless, So, that whole thing is bizarre for me. I don't get it. I don't understand why that never came up and why we're not having this discussion and why Xander isn't having any consequence for that.
Yeah.
But,
and Xander is so, grouchy in this episode. He's so, our little moment of it, we only get a few moments of Xander. But Xander's a little bit all over the place in this episode. And I'm just like, really?
Yeah. Well, and the weird scene too, where he and Cordelia are at the party, just out there in the middle of, and Buffy comes over to talk to them, and Cordelia's just kissing his neck, and they're just, basically having stand-up sex while, Buffy is standing right there. And it's you could stop for a minute. Yeah. I mean, I get that Cordelia was turned on by Xander as Nighthawk and all of that, but
and their
it
whole
was weird.
Yeah, their whole
Weird.
reunion.
Yeah.
It was last time in Anne when they make the vampire sandwich on Xander and Cordy bread.
Yeah.
And then of course, they get that fantastic swell of music and everything is all right between them, but very, very odd. Very odd.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. The whole thing is really weird.
It's odd.
But, we're definitely going to be coming back to that conversation quite a bit. But for now, Noelle, what are you wearing?
Speaking of the whole boy slayer look.
Yes.
All right. I love Xander's enormous cross necklace.
Oh, yeah.
That he might have made himself.
Definitely.
When he took woodshop during summer school? What?
I guess.
Where did he find this thing? It's so hilarious. And then we get that nice long pan across the Scoobies on the ground in the alley.
Mm-hmm.
So we can see all the various ways in which they're tricked out with stakes. And it is delightful. I love them with stakes strapped to every part of their body. It's so good. It's
gotta be prepared,
funny.
Man. Yeah.
And okay, I know this is a dream sequence.
Yes.
Buffy's backless light blue sweater? What the actual fuck is that? It looks like a ballet wrap sweater worn backwards. And I get that, that this is a dream. Okay. So maybe it's one of those things where, when you've told someone about a weird dream you had and you're like, okay, all right. So we were at my elementary school, but it was on a tennis court at night. And it made sense in the dream.
In the dream,
maybe
sure.
This sweater made sense in the dream. But were they trying to make fetch happen with a backwards ballet wrap sweater? Or maybe this was a trend that I missed out on because I wasn't cool or fashionable in 1998. But it was so distracting. I completely lost the whole, what is the point of that whole dream sequence?
God, that's so funny.
Other than this bizarre sweater situation. I mean,
I guess it's just so we can have Angel in the episode.
I guess.
Because we've got to use dream sequences until he comes back.
Right. Yeah, I keep being distracted by the fact that David Boreanaz is in the credits. I'm like, but he's dead in a hell dimension.
But he's in the hell dimension.
What's gonna happen, Lani?
Well, plus I thought that Akatla was supposed to suck. I mean, I guess we'll talk about this more. This will be the research question when we get there. But Akatla was supposed to suck the demons into this hell dimension, but it was supposed to be a party for the demons. Oh, I guess because he got his soul back, so that's why he's being tormented. That makes sense.
So, but wait a minute.
Right.
So shouldn't he be partying half the time and then in torment the other half of the time? How does that work?
I really don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah. But nothing super meaningful in the clothing, but some really interesting clothing choices. And of course, Willow continues to look just delightful.
Adorable.
Just delightful. Such a fan. Always
She's
a joy.
so cute.
Yeah.
She's so cute. I like her. I like her new hair, her new little, shoulder-length hair. It's very
Yes,
sweet.
and everybody got, it wasn't just Buffy who got a
Everybody
dye
gets
job.
new
Everybody
hair
got
in the
hair
new
dye.
season. Everybody got that. Giles' hair is a little more curly. It's allowed to kind of like hang out a little bit more. It's a little more rough and tumble, the way that I like it. Give a girl something to hold on to. I think it's very cool. Xander's got the whole, pomade thing going on. He's got the slicked, greasy hair look. And of course, Oz is his nice little strawberry blonde thing going on.
So cute.
So I like the new hair. I don't know. It's hair for some reason is the thing with me. And I don't know why, because I'm not really that into hair. But like, I have this thing with my students. If I have students who have similar hair, it takes me forever to tell the difference between them.
No.
I had 3 girls with long, straight, like dark hair in one semester, and literally got them mixed up all the time.
No.
And it was a big mess. So yeah, I don't know. I got a thing with hair. I like the new hair. So this week for Arg the Patriarchy, we actually have Arg the Colonizers. We got to talk about this Nigerian death mask. We've mentioned it a little bit. But the Nigerian death mask being purchased by the gallery from people who likely stole it from the Nigerian people. It's a little sketchy. Joyce stealing it then from the gallery and putting it up in her bedroom is also super sketchy. Touching it without gloves. Like, this is an artifact.
Wait a second.
Like, let's just put it on a rusty nail in the wall and cover up the hole she put in. Like, it's weird. I could understand if she bought it from like the gallery store and it was supposed to be a replica and ended up accidentally being the real thing. Okay, fine. But
Right.
she actually said this is a shipment that the gallery got in. And I thought I'd just steal this
I thought it would
piece
just
and
take
put it
it
on my
home.
wall.
That
I
seems
thought I would
really
just take home-
unethical. Like, just from
Which to me,
an
I
employment
know, but it reflects
standpoint.
the way that, it's just so many levels it's wrong, but it like reflects this very casual attitude that white people and colonizers have traditionally had toward art from the places they were colonizing. So the bottom line is, I just want to say, on behalf of Chipperish Media, and I think pretty much we would all agree with this, Africa's art should be returned to Africa, as should all plundered artifacts from all countries, It is possible some artifacts are legitimately loaned out for exhibitions, and that is definitely okay. We should all be sharing culture and looking at it, but it should belong to the people who made it. And we treat these artifacts and cultures very casually in Buffy. If we ever talk about Africa, it's with demonic associations. We got it with the Maasai and the hyena thing in season 1. When we get to season 7 and we talk about the origin of the first Slayer,
man, yeah.
I think it's season 5 and season 7 we start doing that. Of course, that's African, and we have this putting demons into girls. So this very lovely bit of horrendous patriarchy, which of course we will address in detail as we get there. But in a show with so few positively associated, diverse characters, it is really important to recognize these things when they come up. So I just wanted to say that is the official stance of Chipperish Media.
It's such a bummer when we, in Buffy or really anywhere, when it's like, oh, we need to make something scary and exotic. So it comes from Africa, or it comes from
deepest, darkest Africa.
Yeah, it's like, God, no, please.
No.
That's not.
It's not good. And it's, this is the way, we as white European culture, the white European culture of Western culture, that's the way we kind of look at artifacts. We look at Africa. We look at any place that basically isn't European and white, as this exotic space from which the demons come.
Yeah.
And I think it's something that we need to just take a real, a side eye to. I understand it's the way stories were being told back then, but taking the side eye means we can kind of take that out so that we can enjoy the rest of it. And so that is what we're doing right now.
Yes.
Artifacts should go back to the people and cultures that made them, and should be loaned and borrowed and used with respect and dealt with respect, and not stolen to put on some white lady's wall in her bedroom.
Right.
I don't know. I realize that's a very controversial.
No, I mean, well,
it shouldn't be a controversial stance.
I don't feel like it should be controversial. But yeah, and of course, white supremacy and the patriarchy are best friends.
Yep.
And,
Best
you know,
buddies.
one feeds into the other in this lovely, like, snake swallowing its own tail kind of situation.
Yes.
So,
This Ouroboros of bad. Yes.
God.
All right. So moving on, tell me, Noelle, what is your girl power moment of the week?
Well, we get lots of big feelings. We get lots of confronting our, you know, the truths about our identities and our best friend situations. But my favorite girl power moment is Cordelia in the storage closet with the ski poles.
I know.
She is all business. And she grabs those ski poles, hands one to Oz, and then, how do we know it's really you and not zombie Giles? I just love that so much. Cordy is quick. She is quick, and she is just a joy forever. And then, of course, Giles says, Cordelia, do stop being tiresome. Is it tiresome?
Yes, tiresome.
And she goes, okay, it's him. And I just love it. I love it. I love Cordy just being, you know, she has become a Scooby, and she is all in. She's not a fan of the outfits necessarily. She doesn't like all of the, you know, she doesn't like the Rambo look. But she's here, and it's wonderful. It's wonderful. I love Cordelia being part of the team and kicking ass.
Yes. No, I think it's fantastic. And Cordy, well, I had my issues with the way that she put the blame on Buffy, and she became something of a, you know, of a conflict vending machine as well. I think that's a nice recovery from that.
Yeah.
All right. So, Noelle, what's your favorite part?
I love the unfolding of the Buffy Willow love story. The Buffy Willow love story is probably my favorite part of the show as a whole.
Yeah.
But everything that we get in this episode, I love them struggling to find that friendship again. Down to trading insults at the end, which is something that I do with my best loves. So it's just, that is just delightful to me.
No, I absolutely love that.
What's your favorite part, Lani?
Oh, just Giles. Everything Giles, Ripper. Give me a British man about to go dark. Yeah, I like it.
Good show, Giles.
Good show.
Giles being so surly about the cat.
I know.
It's not my cat.
I love all of it.
And of course, Cordelia.
Do you like my mask? Isn't it pretty?
Cordelia saying, "Don't you like anything regular?"
Yes,
which I just love.
Everything. Oh God, and Giles with the moment, taking a moment at making the tea for everybody in his kitchen. I absolutely love it. Everything down to his weird, hot water heater that's just like in the kitchen.
That
like
is
I don't
so
know.
Weird. That is so. I mean, I guess his
weird.
apartment is beautiful otherwise. So I guess there's got to be something that makes it affordable. I
guess, but it's so weird because for set designers, everything is deliberate.
Right.
So like the deliberate putting of the hot water heater in the kitchen. I love it. I love everything Giles. I don't care what it is. Hot water heater, everything. Crappy car, everything.
His car. Oh my God, Giles' car.
I know. All right, that's it for today. To join in the discussion on Twitter, follow me at Lani and Rich and Noelle at Noelle Aloud and use the hashtag StillPretty. You can also visit the Chipperish forums. Go to chipperish.com, click on forum, and join in the fun.
Or you can keep Chipperish Media going to the tune of $1 a month or more and gain access to the live chat in Discord where you can hang out with me and Lani and all the Chipperish patrons whose Vampire Patrol names are cooler than Nighthawk. Visit patreon.com/Chipperish to find out more.
You can also show your support by giving Still Pretty a great review on Apple Podcasts, or by telling your friends about the show, or by turning Cordelia on with that whole boy slayer look.
We will be back next time with Faith, Hope, and Trick, the 3rd episode of Season 3. Until then, I'll stop giving you a hard time. Runaway.
Whiner.
Baylor.
Harpy.
Delinquent.
Tramp.
Bad seed.
Witch.
Freak.